Hi people. Hi, thank you, Himanshu. Just gonna wait for 5 minutes until people can log in and we will start. Aditya, what's up? Good to see you. Hi, Ankita. Hey, Ketan, Sharad, Rahul, Naveen Johnson. Hi, hi, Sharad. Samir Gawane. Hi, Aditya. I'm really good. I hope these photo autopsies. Now we're calling it photo autopsies because we are literally dissecting the picture down to their cellular structure. So I think it makes sense to call it photo autopsies. What we thought of doing was all the beauty shots, close-up shots, all the glamour shots. We're gonna include them in like season one and maybe 4 or 5 episodes, and then we moved to like a season two where we're gonna have advertising shots, campaign shots, probably some print modeling and all the commercial stuff that goes on. So let's see how that goes. Also, for all of you who are already over here, I'm going to be switching off the comments once I start talking about the picture, so that the photograph does not get obscured with all the text coming in. If you want to ask me question, there's a square with a question mark at the bottom. You can tap on that and you can ask me whatever questions you want. And the last 10 minutes, I'll be answering questions about whatever it is that you want to know. Arvind is here. Hi, Arvind. Good to see you. Yeah. Aditya, I feel very nostalgic for, doing the autopsies. Excellent. So, 2 more minutes and we will start. I'm timing this so as to not waste everyone's time. Mrugank is here. Hi, Mrugank. So this time, I think most of the people who are logging in are people who I don't really know. So that's good news for me. So those many new viewers, those many people who I can try and get them intrigued in whatever it is that I'm doing. I think the earphones were not there last time. I think this will help with the audio quality. Tejas is here. Hi, Tejas. So I'm just going to display the picture that we're going to talk about today, and this is what we're going to talk about. Like I said, I'm going to switch off the comments so everybody knows. Everybody sees exactly what I'm displaying on the screen. It takes there's a little bit of lag, so I think in about a couple of seconds you'll see the picture on your screen. Okay, great. So I'm switching off the comments right now, and what we're doing is, if you have any questions, which I'll definitely answer each and every question, you'll see a small box with a question mark at the bottom of your screen. You can tap on that and ask me your questions. The comments are going to be switched off so that you don't get distracted and the image does not get covered. We've got better quality slides, and we've got them made as per the layout, so all of you can see everything, and the takeaway from these sessions is more, and even I can explain more. Ninad is here. Hi, Ninad. Okay, so comments are going off. There you go. Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen is the picture that we are discussing, and you all know that I'm somebody who does minimal editing, and I hope it's believable when I say that this picture has been shot on camera without any editing, and there's been some editing which I'm going to take you through. I'm going to take you through the workflow also. I've got some lighting diagram, the behind the scenes diagram for this. On this photo shoot, Sonal was my makeup artist, and she did a really good job, and she arranged all the flowers, and that was the part that took the maximum amount of time, because the model in this, her name is Sweet, and I've shot with her a couple of times. I basically chose sweet because that's a flavor that I wanted to add to my portfolio. Over here in India, you get a certain kind of models, but getting this ethnicity, getting the African skin tone and the African features to work with is a rarity, and I think I did Sweet's first ever photo shoot, and then a couple of people have used her for their shoots. But whatever I've done with her has come out really well. She's someone who takes instructions really well, and that's something that you really need to find in a model. So yeah, so in this picture the lighting has been extremely tight, and I deliberately did like a low key lighting because I wanted to make it a little more dramatic. I like slivers of light. I like the fine touches, just like a hint of the light on the edge, a little bit of light over the head, then just like a little soft light just brushing across the cheek, just accentuating the jawline. So these are the kind of things I really like. Also, it takes a lot of control over light to achieve what I've tried to achieve in this. So generally, when we do these creative kind of shoots, we target for only 1 or 2 looks because we are time bound, and I really feel that just doing 1 look or 2 looks throughout the day, you can really invest a lot of time and energy into it. The creativity flows in the right direction, and you don't really want to push it and get the shoot over and done with just for the sake of getting it over and done with. You really want to give it your all. So these are normal flowers that we've actually procured from a local florist, and what took the maximum amount of time was getting the makeup done on the skin. My makeup artist was not really attuned to working with this kind of a skin tone and skin type, so she really had to do her homework and do a lot of trial and error to get exactly what I wanted. Plus putting in all the flowers as a part of a headgear. It's not like a headgear which we made and we put it on her head. So each and every individual flower is actually sewn into her hair, and that was the toughest part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the lighting diagram now. um, so yeah, so okay, before I go over there, any guesses on how the flip image, like you see the model over here and you've got a flip image of her on the other side. So a lot of people think it is shutter drag, it's double exposure. So it's none of that. What I've basically done is, when I'm shooting with the camera, you've got a prism, right? Like a regular prism that you use in maybe a science lab or a physics lab. So a regular prism was just kept in front of the lens, and a prism, as we know, and everybody has learned this in school, a prism will diffract light. So it is that's exactly what it is done over here. So you set the prism over there, you change the angle how you want it, how much of it you want in the frame, how much of it you want out of the frame, and you just keep turning the prism and just be observant through the viewfinder, and you exactly see what you're going to capture through the viewfinder, and it's just about pulling the trigger. Yeah, of course, I probably make it sound very easy. It's not as easy as it looks, because getting everything spot on is of the essence. So yeah, a prism is really good. I generally like shooting through a lot of translucent mediums to create a lot of foreground, also to create flip images like these, multiple images like these. So this reflection and the refraction is something which is very interesting, and every time you move the prism even half an inch on either side, you'll get something totally different. So this was a mixture of using the prism as well as a slow shutter speed. So these are like two techniques combined to get the output that you can see on the screen, right? So I'm going to quickly jump into the lighting diagram. So I'm changing the slide. I hope everybody can see this. So I'm going to give it 5 seconds for it to show up on all your screens. Also, once again, if you have any questions, you can just tap on the question mark and the box icon at the bottom, and over there you can type in your questions, and I promise you each and every question will be answered. So don't forget that. I'm repeating it because for all the people who have missed it, all the people who are joining in late, they should not miss out on the opportunity of getting their doubts clarified. That's the only motive behind me repeating it 20 times. So okay, on the top left, a box next to where you can see me, you can see the behind the scenes shot of what the setup looks like. At the bottom, I've got a nice lighting diagram, and originally I had something else in mind. So we had a green, like a bottle green, kind of like a very muted, very desaturated bottle green kind of a background, and I had something totally different which I had in mind, which I wanted to shoot. But like I have told in my earlier interviews, earlier live session, my earlier photo autopsy, what happens is I don't really plan too much. So this is a classic case, where I plan to do something with a green background and the model, and I wanted a certain kind of image to be shot. But once I went there, the entire photo shoot took a shape of its own, course of its own, and what I got was something which was beyond what I imagined. So I think again, I always say this: certain magic needs to happen on its own. I'm just giving it that window for all that magic to happen. So I can see the questions coming in. Please keep them coming. We're going to do those in the last 10 minutes of this session. So I basically used a Hasselblad, a medium format camera with a 80 megapixel phase one back, and it's a pretty heavy camera. Also, what I do is, I'm very animated when I shoot. I have a lot of instructions to give, so I'm constantly moving my hands and I'm trying to instruct the model. I'm trying to point in different directions. So what I do is I keep the camera mounted on the tripod, and a lot of times I'm off the camera. I'm not even seeing through the camera. I've got my focus locked, and I keep pointing the model in the right direction. I keep directing them. I try to move their head, the collarbones, even they're coming forward, they're going backward. All these things I keep instructing, and when I feel that okay, what she's doing is in sync with what I want, and I just keep clicking. Every couple of shots, if she's moving too forward or too backward, depending on my aperture, I will either refocus or I will just keep it focused wherever it is focused. What happens is, if you're shooting at a very open aperture, maybe a f2.8 or 3.5, or if you're going lower to maybe a 2.2 or even a 1.8, 1.2, what happens is even 1 inch of movement forward or backward, especially if you're close to the model, will throw your focus point off. So you have to take cognizance of the fact that you're shooting on a shallow aperture, a very open aperture giving you very shallow depth of field, and accordingly you have to keep focusing and refocusing. Pay attention to what the model is doing, how much movement is happening with the model. If you're shooting on, let's say, a f5.6, 8, 11 and upwards, then you can pretty much keep the camera locked in one position and you can keep clicking. You don't really have to constantly keep looking through the camera and constantly keep refocusing it for every shot. Doesn't really matter. So yeah, it's mounted on the tripod, and I've got a beauty dish with a grid. That's a Elinchrom beauty dish with a grid, which is coming from top down, probably at an angle of about 40 to 45 degrees. Now, of course, this is just guesswork. It's not like I use a device and calculate what degree I want the beauty dish to be at. So it's basically the use of modeling lamps that you have in these lights. I switch them on, I get them approximately where I want them, I take a couple of test shots, and then I choose to either keep it the same, or then I can change the angle, change the height depending on what I want and what I don't want. So yeah, so the beauty dish basically acts like a key light, and I've got a strip with a grid. I love using grids. I don't really see too many people using grids. Grids basically give you very good control over light. Grids throw the light in one direction. They will not basically let the light to spread. If the light is spreading in this direction, what the grid will do is it will make it go straight in a straight line, and in that sense, you lose a lot of intensity because light essentially gets controlled to a very large degree. And the benefit of that is it goes in one direction and you can have very good control over it. So if you see in the diagram, my beauty dish has got a grid, my reflector bowl has got a grid, and my strip which is on the edge of the model, even that has got a grid. So I have got so many grids, and that's the reason why there is no extra light, there's no unwanted light which is spilling on the background, on the model, on the body of the model. Everything is controlled and everything is exactly how I want it to be. It's only because of the use of these grids. So if you're not using grids, I think it's a very, very good idea to invest in these modifiers. You'll really thank me for it once you start using grids. So the beauty dish is a key light, and after using the beauty dish, of course, what happens is, it's a hard source of light, and I use it without the baffle. The baffle is the diffuser that goes on the front of the softbox, making the hard light soft. But I have used hard light for this, and because the hard light was throwing a lot of harsh shadows, in the opposite direction, what I did is, I've held a silver reflector right under the chin. And what the silver reflector does is, it gives me a certain shine on the face, and I get highlights on the contours of a face. Also, it throws in a lot of lights into the shadow areas. And also, one more thing that I always do is I never center my light to the model. So it's not like the beauty dish. The center of the beauty dish is exactly going onto her face. My lights are always pointed away. The center is never in line with the face of the model. So what I really like to do is point them away, and whatever spill off that I get from the sides, it's very delicate, nice, great quality light. I really enjoy shooting and doing all my shoots in that light spill, the spill off that I get from moving the center of the light away from the face of the model. So that's the same thing that has been done with the beauty dish. That's the same thing that's been done with the strip and the grid. So you can try doing that, because normally you get a lot of unnecessary light. If you point it away, you're still getting the spill off from the side, and I think that kind of light is very, very I think that's pretty essential, pretty much what you need. I think more than that, unless you want to just wash the model out with like an edge light or a key light, I don't think that much of light is ever required. So try doing that. That's a very good habit. Of course, you in the picture you see a laptop to which I tether the camera. I like seeing big previews, so I typically will tether it to the MacBook Pro, and the software that I use is Capture One. So whenever I click, I can see it in Capture One, and then I have a lot of control over the shadows, the highlights, the brightness, the contrast, and the saturation. So these things are primarily the things that I play around with when I'm shooting, tethered, when I'm shooting, any kind of creative shoot. I don't believe in doing any editing, beyond that. Of course, I keep repeating in all my talks that I like cool tones in my photos. So whatever image that you see, it'll always have a slight bluish cast or a slight green cast, which is what I really go by. I like that look and feel. So again, so this slide is pretty much done with, unless you have any questions. So if you have any questions, I'm going to repeat myself. There's a small box with a question mark sign at the bottom of your screen. You can just click on that and ask me your questions, and I promise to answer all your questions in the last 10 minutes. So moving over forward. So what I'm going to show you now is, so when you click a photograph, you basically get a raw file, which is directly off the camera. Like this is the file. It's like a negative, when you click on a film camera, you get a negative. When you click on a digital camera, you get a raw file. So I'm going to show you the raw file that I got and what treatment I have done on the raw file to get a finished raw file which is ready to go into edit. So the next slide is going to be all about that. So again, giving it 3-4 seconds so the picture is all visible on your screen. Yeah. So on the top left, if you see, I've labeled it raw, so it's got a nice warm tone to it. And if you see, it's, I think, probably about 90% there, in terms of how I want the final file to be, the final image to be. So it's got a nice yellow cast, which is the model's natural skin tone. And the next slide is going to be all the things that I've done to the raw file, after which I have got the file at the bottom, which reads as raw treatment. So after doing certain things, I have got this file. Let's see what all we have done over here. On to the next one. So now this is basically a comparison between this file that you see over here, which is the raw file, and this file which you see after I've moved around a few sliders and done some settings to the raw file. So there you go. So what I've done to the raw file that I've got is I have just bumped up the exposure by 0.5. I like contrasty images. When you move if you move the contrast to a heavy contrast, what happens is the shadows get deeper. So what is contrast? Essentially the difference between your highlights and your shadows. The more the difference, the more contrasty the image is. The less the difference between your shadows and the highlights, the less contrasty your image is. It's as simple as that. So I have bumped up the contrast also to a plus 15. I've given you all the values that I've done. And of course I like desaturated images. Also, when I desaturate an image, if I put a color cast into it, it does not become very, very overbearing. So what I do is I desaturate all my pictures. So this has been desaturated with a minus 11. I've just taken the slider and moved it down to minus 11. Now all these values are not a thumb rule for anything. This is something which I just liked on this picture, and it gave me the kind of output that I wanted. It's not necessary that the next image or the next shoot that I do, it's not a formula that I'll always follow. But yes, I generally will desaturate my pictures because I like to add a cool tone to it, like I already said. Now over here, because it's a very dark image and the lighting is very to the point and exactly where I want it, so it creates a lot of shadows, and with a lot of shadows you tend to miss a lot of details that you can otherwise get in the shadows. So what I've done over here is I've opened up the shadows by plus 13, so that gives me some extra detail on the face, on the flowers, just the highlights and the way the nose and the lips, the forehead, it's getting that that glistened look. I think that happens when you open the shadows by a plus 13. Of course, the color temperature, the normal daylight temperature is about 5,500 Kelvin. So what I've done is I've moved the slider down to get it down to 3474 Kelvin. So if you see the slightly bluish tone, the bluish tinge that you're seeing to the photograph is because I've moved the color temperature slider to the left and kept it at about 3,500 Kelvin. So moving around to the last slide, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you after I've got the raw file. This is the picture that you're seeing on the screen, which is with the raw treatment. So I'll go over it again. So this is the top left picture on your screen is the raw file directly of the camera. What you see at the bottom is the raw treatment file, which I've explained over here in terms of whatever settings that I've done. The next slide is going to be after I get this picture, what are the kind of edits that I'm going to do. Now this is for me, guys, this for me is 95% there. I don't need to really do anything that's anything more than what you can already see in my picture, and it's like 90% exactly as per what I wanted in my head. 5% is the raw treatment, and maybe another 5% is just like just the editing, basic editing on the skin and around the face that I've done, which I'm going to show you in my next slide. So this is the last slide of the series. So if you see on the top left, again, I'm zooming in very close to the file which has already received the raw treatment, which has been treated with whatever it is that I wanted to do. If you zoom in, you see a lot of detail. When you shoot on the Hasselblad, especially with the phase 1 background, you tend to see details which are very, very unnecessary. So a lot of times the pictures are over sharp, so sharp that I have to soften them a little bit in Photoshop later. So you see certain blemishes, like there's a little bit of a blemish over here, some rough skin texture happening over here, a little bit under the eye. Then the nose has got a certain shade up till here, and then the front of the nose is just shining very weirdly. So I think that there's a very matte texture over here, and there's a very glossy texture on the tip of the nose. So what I've basically done is just taken care of those rough skin patches, and also the shining nose and a little bit of shine around the eyebrow and over here under the eye, and after that, I have really got the final picture that you can see, which is right here at the bottom. So that's pretty much how I have shot this. So I think we have about 7 to 8 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the questions now. So nice, I've got some 10 questions over here. At this point, I'm also thinking of switching the commenting on. Okay, there you go. So let's open the questions. Okay, so can you show the way you have used the prism? So Pam Studio In wants to know how I've used the prism. So I don't have the prism on me right now, but maybe I can show it to you with the AC remote that I have in handy. Next time, probably the improvisation that I can do from my end is actually carry the prop or whatever accessory that I've used to show you how exactly it's to be done. So if this is my camera, I just hold the prism in the front and I just keep moving it the way I want it. If I move it in any direction, I'm going to get something different on the camera. So you can keep it in the center of the lens, you can move it to the side of the lens, you move it in this axis, you'll get something different. You move it around itself, you'll constantly keep getting something different. So buy a prism. It's a very inexpensive buy. I think any local shop or online is a good way to get a prism. And experiment it for yourself, man. I think you could probably get something which is much better than what I've already got over here. So just see how you want to use a prism rather than how I'm already using a prism. Maybe you'll get surprised with what kind of creativity you can add to it. How can we get the catch light using this setup is Umang Kapoor's question. So Umang, I know catch lights are a thing, but I have never really bothered about catch lights so much. Yeah, if I get them, it's great, but I think the overall appeal of the picture really matters more to me than just getting the catch lights. Also, in the attempt of getting in this picture, the catch light is kept very high on top. So I could have probably taken it down to get the catch lights, or the model is looking to the side. Maybe what I can do is I can hold a thermocol or a styrofoam sheet or maybe just like a white piece of paper in front of the face in the direction where she's looking, and that will reflect in the eyes and you can still get a catch light. But honestly, I'm not very anal about getting catch lighting. If I get it, it's fine. If I don't really get it, it's fine. I like the picture overall, so yeah. uh, Jitali photography. Instead of a strip box with a grid, could we get the same effect with the snoot? Yeah, you can get the same effect with the snoot, but of course, the throw of light is going to be very small. What you will have to do is to get if you want to simulate a strip with a grid. A strip is like what, 4 feet long, at least 4 to 4.5 feet long. You're comparing that with a modifier which is probably got a diameter of about 4 to 5 inches, 6 inches at best. You can use a snoot, but it's going to give you a very concentrated spot of light. You'll have to take the snoot very far away because the throw of light, if you get it close, it's going to be very concentrated. If you take it far, it's just going to move out. What's the trade-off over here is, the further away you take it, the harder the light is going to get. So if you want to work with soft lighting, that's not really going to work, I think. So a strip is definitely a better option. You can get something totally different with the snoot, which is on similar lines, but you cannot replace a strip with a snoot. That's a no-no for sure. Next question is, do you use color ND filter to get blue or green feel on image? I could do that. I also have a series of pictures which are shot using colored gels and ND filters. So you could do that also, but I think playing around with the color temperature, I think gives me more flexibility and more latitude of working with the picture and what I want in the end. So I think next week I've got something different coming up. I think the week after that we can do a gel series where I think all these questions will be answered. What's the best distance between subject and light? So what's the best distance between subject and light? So it depends, man. So, I don't know how many people know, but it all depends on if you want your light to be hard or if you want your light to be soft. So how about you go and figure out this, Gautam? I'll tell you anyways, but you have to experiment with this. Even if it's a hard source of light, the closer it comes to the face, the harder it gets. The further away you take it from the face, the softer it gets. Sorry, it's the other way around. You get it close to the face, it becomes brighter, but it becomes softer. But you take it far away, it becomes the intensity reduces, but the quality of the light becomes from soft to hard. So the distance purely depends upon how much you want the light to fall. What's the throw of the light? Is it spilling in unnecessary areas, too much in the background? If the quality of light is hard or soft, you have to ask yourself these questions before you can decide the distance between the subject and the light. How do you create a diagram? So Gautam, I what I'll do is once I share this onto a IGTV video, in my comments I will mention the software that I've used to create the diagram that you saw. That will really help you. Was there any skin smoothing done in post? Any dodge and burn? So Premal, there was no dodging and burning which was done. I normally would do it, but over here I did not think it was necessary. Skin smoothing has not been done. What I've done is I've only used the heel tool and I've used the stamp tool to get rid of the big blemishes and the big bumps which were seen on the nose and under the eyes and on the cheek. That's about it. Other than that, I think we have tried to do as much as we can in makeup. No skin smoothing was done. I am pretty much against it because I like seeing the raw texture of the skin. And even if it in the process, if it shows any kind of you know flaws, I think it's good because I don't think a picture needs to be perfect. How different would the light be if the beauty dish was replaced with an diffused octa with grid? So a diffuse octa with grid and a beauty dish. So a beauty dish basically has a deflector which you attach in the center of the light. So that deflector will give you a nice diffuse patch of light on the face. With an octa, you're going to get a different quality of light, although you can get something similar. But I think the deflector of the beauty dish is what really causes the dramatic lighting that you get with the beauty dish. सर आपके हर शूट में रीफोकस यूज़ करते हैं? आई डेंट गेट योर क्वेश्चन यार. रीफोकस हर एक शॉट में रीफोकस मैं यूज़ नहीं करता हूँ. जैसे मैंने कहा कि डिपेंड्स कि मैं कौन से अपर्चर पे शूट कर रहा हूँ. अगर मैं एकदम खुले अपर्चर पे शूट कर रहा हूँ, एफ 1.2 1.8 2.2 2.8 3.5 इवन 4 तक अगर मैं शूट कर रहा हूँ, तो क्या होता है मेरा डेप्थ एकदम शैलो होता है. सो थोड़ा भी अगर मॉडल आगे पीछे अगर हिलती है तो आई हैव टू रीफोकस. इफ़ आई एम शूटिंग, अगर मेरा अपर्चर होगा 8-11 या उसके ऊपर होगा अपर्चर, तो उसके लिए मुझे रीफोकसिंग करने की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ती है बिकॉज मेरा डेप्थ ऑफ फील्ड जो रहता है वो वो काफ़ी अच्छा होता है. एंड प्लीज़ टेल द कैमरा सेटिंग्स. सो आई डोंट नो द कैमरा सेटिंग्स राइट नाउ. मुझे पता नहीं है क्या है, बट लाइटिंग डायग्राम कौन से सॉफ्टवेयर में बनाते हैं उसके साथ साथ मैं कैमरा के सेटिंग्स भी डाल दूंगा वंस दिस वीडियो गोज ऑन IGTV. So there are a couple of more questions, the 3 more questions, after which I think we'll wrap it up. So skin editing in general, what you all do, which all tools you use for skin smoothing? So I've got an editor. This is a question by K photography art, K_photography art. So I've got an editor who's got an entire workflow and he's got a lot of things that he does and uses. But ultimately, when he gives me the picture, I do not want the picture to look over edited. So that's my brief to him. So I don't know how he does it. A lot of these creative photos, I only edit myself because there's hardly any editing to be done. Literally like 10 minute का काम होता है. And I mainly use the heel tool, I use the stamp tool, and yeah, that's about it. that's about it. Honestly, that's about it. And कभी कभार dodge burn use करता हूँ मैं, but that's the extent of it. What is power for all lights you used? So Mitesh 8989. So power, man, I don't know, man. I have not made these notes, but what I can also try and include when I include the camera settings, I think you will come to know, because based on the aperture, you'll kind of guess what the intensity of lights that were used. Cool. I think we're done. So, anyways, I want to keep these sessions for about half an hour, 40 minutes. And I think we're done with all the questions over here. Okay, Gautam, most welcome. Suraj, thank you. How does the grid come into play, even that the shadows can be controlled in post? How does the grid come into play, given that the shadows can be controlled? So, grid is not to create shadows. This is by Batman Ka Beta. So the grid is not to create shadows. Yeah, if you want to use it to create shadows, you can, but the grid is basically to give the light direction, so it doesn't go all over the place. Okay, one last question, after which we're gonna call it quits. Okay, which digital back do you use? So I've got the Phase 1 IQ 180. That's the back that I have. It's a 80 megapixel back, gets the job done, and yeah, I'm happy. The clients are happier. So yeah, it's a good equipment to have. It's a very good back to invest in. Any post processing workshop coming up? So I don't know, yeah, because with the whole COVID thing happening, I don't even know when any kind of a workshop will happen, because social distancing, not gathering in big groups. So I think it's going to be a problem. But yeah, you tune in and I'll let you know. So we are concluding this as of right now. I hope this was helpful, better than the last session. I'm going to try and make it even better next time. Next week we've got something very exciting and interesting, and I'm going to go live with somebody, with some person who I'm going to talk about, who I've shot. The picture that we're going to dissect in next week, I'm going to invite the model also to talk to us about it. And yeah, it's going to be a Q&A, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So do tune in. And again, DM me whatever your suggestions are. How can this be made better? How did you find this? Testimonials always really help. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Until then, be safe and take care of yourselves. Bye bye.